Let's get the meeting started. I'd like to call to order the Ventura Local Agency Formation Commission meeting here on Wednesday, July 17th at 9 a.m. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Commissioner Curtis, would you lead that for us?
Hand over heart, place. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Rochelle, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Parks? Here. Commissioner Parvin?
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Here.
Commissioner Zaragoza?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Curtis?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Richards? Chair Ross?
Here. Thank you. Let's move to item 4, agenda review. Consider and approve by majority vote minor revisions to commission items and or attachments and any item added to or removed, continued from the LAFCo agenda, and changes to the order of business to accommodate special circumstances. Does it look good to everybody here? Great. Okay. Move on to public comment in item 5. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on any subject matter within the commission's jurisdiction. Rochelle, do we have any speaker cards for public comment? Okay. Moving forward to the consent items. Any items on the consent calendar that need to be looked at closer?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Parvin, seconded by Commissioner Zaragoza. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now on to our public hearing items. Item 8, LAFCo 19-05, Callegas Municipal Water District, activation of the latent power to provide wastewater disposal service. Andrea, do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, good morning. Callegas Municipal Water District is requesting that the Commission approve the activation of the latent power to provide wastewater disposal service. The Municipal Water District Law of 1911 accommodates many water-related services that municipal water districts may provide, including that they may acquire, control, distribute, store, spread, sink, treat, purify, recycle, recapture, and salvage any water, including sewage and stormwaters. It may undertake water conservation programs, sell potable water and non-potable water, and may acquire, construct, and operate facilities for the collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage, waste, and stormwater. According to the 2003 Water and Wastewater Municipal Service Review that was accepted by LAFCo, Callegas is authorized to provide wholesale water, water treatment, recycled reclaimed water, agricultural water, groundwater management, water replenishment, and water conservation. The request by Callegas to exercise the latent power to provide wastewater disposal service is in order to operate the regional salinity management pipeline. Latent powers are those services, facilities, functions, or powers that are authorized by the Principal Act under which the district is formed, but are not being exercised as determined by the Commission. The Commission has the authority to approve the establishment of new or different functions or class of services. So that is the request before you today, to activate that latent power. The idea behind the salinity management pipeline, or the SMP, is that it allows for the development of groundwater desalters that could not otherwise be developed because the salty brine byproduct cannot be discharged into the sewer system. The operation of the SMP does so by collecting brine from the groundwater treatment facilities and conveys that water for discharge into the Pacific Ocean. Capital improvement expenses to date exceed $140 million, and the anticipated total to build out of the plan, or the pipeline as anticipated, is another $75 million on top of that. The cost recovery period for the capital improvement expenses is about 35 to 50 years. Annual operating expenses are anticipated to be $700,000. And funding sources currently are primarily from water sales, but overall are anticipated to come from water sales, bonds, property taxes, standby charges, and also the S&P discharge income. This map was provided by Callegas and shows the salinity management pipeline. The line shown in blue is the existing extent of the pipeline, and it runs currently from Camarillo down to the outfall of the city of Port Hueneme. And the green lines are the proposed, the anticipated extensions of the pipeline into Moore Park and Simi Valley. The Camarillo North Pleasant Valley desalter is expected to be the next desalter to come online and to connect to the SMP. The proposal is exempt from CEQA because it can be seen with certainty that there's no possibility that it may have a significant effect on the environment, and because it consists of an existing publicly owned utility that provides public utility services. The notice of public hearing was provided as required by law, and no comments were received. Activation of latent powers is subject to protest proceedings, so if approved by the Commission, a protest hearing will be held by the executive officer next month. Staff recommends that your commission determine that the action to approve the request by Callegas is exempt from CEQA, and that it adopt a resolution making determinations and approving Callegas's proposal for the establishment of wastewater disposal service as a new service within the jurisdictional boundaries of Callegas in order for it to operate the salinity management pipeline. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and also Callegas staff is available for questions if you have some for them. And they may have a presentation as well.
Thank you, Andrea. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Since Callegas is in the water business, and as this is a one-time item for Callegas to dispose of sewage material?
The purpose of this, the latent service request for wastewater disposal service, it's
Yes.
limited to the salinity management
Limited to this
pipeline,
one,
so it's
one project.
related, right?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Richards?
Curiosity, their service district extends quite a ways into the Pacific Ocean. Is there a specific reason for that?
That it does, it has to do with the mean high tide line and the distance for cities as well, correct?
Actually, it aligns with the state jurisdictional boundaries. Like the cities, they go out 3 miles just to align with the state boundaries.
Thank you.
Commissioner Curtis?
I think Ventura County needs this line. For one thing, the State Regional Board on their TMDLs on all of our streams and everything where we put our wastewater in, the salinity has gone up there, and one of the things that they're trying to do is to reduce the salt into that. If you know anything about the Santa Clara River, you'll know that the river itself is under a TMDL requirement, and they're going to have to do this up in the Santa Clarita area also. I think it's very important that this be approved. It takes the brine from the desalters and puts it back into the ocean, which is a salt. And that's what they have to get rid of. And otherwise it becomes very expensive. Well, of course, they're spending $140 million on this and more to get it done. And when it's done, it'll bring a lot more water available out of the ground here in Ventura County, because there's an awful lot of water that's underground, but it's non-potable because of the salinity aspect of it. I think this is one of the things that really needs to be done, and so therefore I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Thank you. And before we make a motion for approval or any motion, this is a public hearing item, so we will have to have open the public hearing and close it. Before Andrea leaves, is there any other questions?
I would just say, I know there's going to be a presentation by Callegas, is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of questions that I would like Callegas or if our staff can address. And one is understanding the importance of this. Also realizing that we are dealing with saltwater intrusion in the Oxnard Plain. And as we take more groundwater out to desalinize it, I'm wondering what that does in terms of bringing in more water from the ocean from the saltwater intrusion. The second question I have is whether this is working in coordination with the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, because I know they have specific targets, and I want to ensure that what occurs with this is in line with the targets, or that there will be an effort to work with Fox Canyon to coordinate.
Great
Those
questions.
are my two questions.
Very good. Commissioner Zaragoza.
Yeah, my understanding is that they've been doing this for quite a while. The brine line's been working and so forth, and we're just going to make it, I don't want to use the word legal, but to make sure that they're complying with the rules from the Water Quality Act. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. But they're doing it already anyway.
Right. I think the first approvals were around 2012 or so, so it's been in the works
Many years ago.
for some time.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrea. Do we have a representative from Callegas that would like to come up and speak for a few moments?
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Dan Drugan, representing Callegas. We also have Eric Berg, our interim general manager here, and Tony Goff, our manager of operations and maintenance. I've been the lead staff contact from Callegas with LAFCo on this issue. I've read the staff report. I think it's very complete. I think Andrea and LAFCO staff did a great job capturing the initial financing mechanisms for the SMP, as well as the revenues generated from the program. And this is a unique situation because the SMP is already operational. And in our minds, we've been planning on this since the late 90s, early 2000s. And so when that first municipal service review occurred, there was that gap right there with the SMP. And so now we were motivated by LAFCO to tie this up and to make sure that we are in compliance. So with some of the questions that Commissioner Parks had, I think if Eric would like to kind of address those.
Yeah. If I recall, Commissioner Member Parks, you asked about the coordination with GMA. Indeed, we have, I'm sure as you're probably aware, been working to develop this before the 1990s actually. The Regional Water Quality Control Board's Basin Plan from 1975 called out the need for a brine line. And it took over a decade for an agency to kind of grab that, and it was Callegas, to develop it for regional benefit. And, in the back of our minds is always the pressure from Northern California, to reduce our imported water footprint. And this allows us to do that. And we're working closely with other retailers, including the County of Ventura, to provide for this facility to tap into their desalters up in Moore Park, Camarillo's, as you heard and saw on the map. Camarosa may have some additional plans in the Santa Rosa Valley, Simi Valley as well. It's one of those projects you build it and they will come, and that's what we're seeing. Massive budget, as you saw, ultimately $250 million. So again, a testament to Callegas and our service area's willingness to step up and do the right thing, become more efficient in how we use our water on top of developing, maximizing the use of our local resources to, again, reduce that imported water footprint to the degree we can. We provide service to 75% of the county's population. That's not going to change. It's probably going to go up over time, potentially. And there's going to be more demand, more folks looking, particularly with what's going on in some of the groundwater basins. Curtis, you mentioned there's groundwater available. Yes, there is. But as we all know, with the GMA's actions and concerns on the Oxnard Plain up in Las Posas Valley, there are areas that there is a water deficit. We're concerned that are some of these agencies going to look towards Callegas to fill that gap or that void if pumping is reduced further. The SMP allows them to develop those local resources, just as we developed the backbone imported water system 50+ years ago. This is a mirror image of that. We're building this backbone, this salinity management pipeline that's allowing these retail agencies, these cities and agencies to develop their own local resources, none of which would be possible without that project. You can't truck off the brine, the volumes are too high. You can't inject it into the ground for environmental concerns. You got to get it to the ocean. The salinity level is about 7,500, 8,000 parts roughly. The ocean's 35,000 total dissolved solids. So yes, there's been a lot of coordination with Fox Canyon and virtually every other entity you can imagine, organization in this area in support of the program. Your first question?
Finishing up on this one, just,
Yeah.
and I don't purport to have the deep understanding of the Fox Canyon group that have been meeting regularly and understand a lot about the hydrogeology and all that. The question that I'm wondering about is, it is the Groundwater Sustainability Management Agency, right? So they have targets on sustaining the amount of groundwater is what I would look at, you know, as
Right.
they are managing that. And I know that this will totally, you know, kick up the game, allowing for a considerable more use of groundwater. And I just want to ensure that the targets that they see are important may go beyond just the agenda of the Callegas group. So I'm wondering if we had some kind of condition that looks at seeing that you coordinate, that it's in coordination with the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency to ensure that they can continue their efforts to meet their targets. And it doesn't sound like that would be objectionable to you.
No, actually, indeed, the Fox Canyon GMA approved the North Las Posas Basin conditional approval for 3,800 acre-feet yield on that, possibly more, depending on the outcome ultimately of the groundwater sustainability
Right.
plans. So certainly that's in the back of everyone's mind. And you move up into Moore Park, which is a county proposal, and the close ties with GMA, essentially the same staff. You can imagine that coordination's pretty tight.
Okay, so I want to ensure that coordination. I'm glad that they have conceptually approved, it sounds like.
Yes.
The other question I have was in regards to saltwater intrusion. Because I know that every time we are pulling out the water and cleaning it, more water conceivably is coming in from the sea, you know, saltwater intrusion. So how does this project impact, if it does, that issue?
I think the sense is that's marginal, if any, because most of the larger desalters that we're talking about here, Camarillo and upstream into Las Posas Valley, into Simi Valley, those facilities wouldn't have an impact on seawater intrusion.
Okay, so are you seeing that the Oxnard Plain and the issue of saltwater intrusion is not an issue?
No, not saying that at all. I'm saying the facilities that will discharge to the SMP are primarily from Camarillo north. You have Camarosa, a fairly small facility, about 1,000 acre-feet per year near the University Channel Islands. Oxnard's discharge to the SMP at this point essentially is the recycled water that they're recovering and highly treating at their advanced water purification plant that we're using. We're allowing them to use the SMP to push water back upstream for the Pleasant Valley farmers so that they can reduce pumping. That's a good thing. Most of the facilities are miles upstream of the Oxnard
So I'm just
Plain.
thinking like Camarosa and Camarillo, that's, I guess, going to tie into Camarosa, the city of Camarillo, right?
Yeah.
And the ability to pump that groundwater, you know, that's in the Oxnard Plain, will increase. So as they pump more, they'll be taking out more, which
Yeah.
I would just think, and like I said, I'm not an expert, as you pump more seawater intrusion can occur. And that, I guess that's a science question I don't understand. I just don't want to have that impact.
Granted, but the reality is the GMA, the regulator of the groundwater basins, approved the North Pleasant Valley or North Las Posas desalter for Camarillo. So if anyone's looking out for seawater intrusion, it should be the GMA.
Okay,
That's their
so
role.
that's
So they've accepted
Okay, and that's
reality
just
of
a
that
question
project.
I have, the not probably remaining. And I know also part of LAFCO's oversight is to ensure the new service is going to be something you can afford. And it is huge, $140 million or so. I know we were talking to have a little nursery we were talking about had some brine. It's like $600,000 to tie in or something. So huge amounts of money for those who want to use it. And
Yes.
you're confident that will pay for this service?
Yes, the way we see it, it's been characterized as a wastewater facility. We understand LAFCO's sense of that. Our sense is that this is helping us generate more potable water through these desalters. And because of that, our purveyors, many of which are the entities that are developing these desalters, understand that a lot of that initial burden, the cost of the program, is borne in the existing rate structure of our potable system, with the understanding that in time, it essentially will pay for itself, the operations. We received quite a bit of grant money to have state and federal, very active on that and continue to be with WCVC. We have a proposal for the $3.5 million for another phase of the SMP. So we talk in terms of $140 million, maybe $250 million. Fortunately, a lot of that, not half, but quite a bit of it, we're able to receive grant money to help supplement.
Thank you. And I know Callejas is very responsible fiscally, and it's good that you can oversee the timing so you can ensure you don't get into a situation where you're over your head on that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Commissioners, any other questions of Callejas staff?
I just want, the saltwater intrusion is really happening here in Oxnard and Magoo and that area. And the salt water that's coming from you is above Camarillo up and towards Simi Valley area.
Most of the brine.
The brine
sourced from there, yes.
Yeah, a lot of this water is surface water from the city's runoff, which in a lot of the watersheds up in the northeast side of the county, it's artesian conditions where it's salty, unusable water that's just floating along the
discharge
top.
it,
So we're going to scoop that up, filter it, send the salt to the ocean, and then we'll use the rest as.
But Mr. Berg, you've been doing this for years and
Too
years.
long, yeah. Yes, you mentioned the east part of the county, so West Simi Valley, right? They have up 4 to half a dozen wells run 24/7, 365 to remove nuisance water, high groundwater. Why does that high groundwater exist? Because 50 years ago, we started importing water into this region, and they were able to shut off their wells. If we didn't have that water, everything you have in the eastern part of the system started out in Northern California, right? Recharging that allows those basins to recharge. We're trying to do all we can to maximize the use and use it again and again, as we do downstream in the Moore Park area, the farming and urban interests as well, to recover that water released from those facilities, including the Simi Valley wastewater plant. And again, it's all about reducing that imported water footprint to the degree we can, because that's the direction we've been given by Sacramento for years.
Commissioner Curtis, you had a question?
Just a comment, but it seems to me memory goes back to the Fox Canyon aquifer, and it seems to me that aquifer is a non-rechargeable aquifer that they are pumping out of right now. And sooner or later, that aquifer is going to run out of water. So we need something to refill it. And this is an opportunity to use existing water to refill it. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the Fox Canyon aquifer, but am I right?
Limited recharge in the United Satakoy area there at the 118 bridge. You're all aware of the ponds that are there that United uses to spread water from the Santa Clara. But given concerns, environmental concerns and Mother Nature, lack of precipitation in recent years, they haven't been able to spread as much water as they would have liked over the last decade. And that has reduced the amount of recharge into the Fox Canyon.
We had a good year of rain this year. We had some good rain this year.
Had some good rain, but still lost
I know,
quite a bit of water.
lots to go.
Right.
Okay, commissioners, anything else for Callejas? Thank you.
Could you elaborate a little bit more, just because I'm kind of fascinated? Why do you say that the wells in Simi are in the situation where they're overflowing and they didn't in the past?
In the past, so predating Callejas, you didn't have any imported water, correct? So you had farming operations and limited urban uses in the Simi Valley back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that were served by groundwater. And
Okay.
it got to a point where Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, the reason Cayugas even exists is because those loose-knit communities at the time, the only city in our service area, ultimately at that time was Oxnard. Camarillo, Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, Simi Valley were unincorporated. They all had the similar problems, either declining groundwater levels or deteriorating water quality. In most cases, it was both. And so Cayugas was formed, electorate, to go out and find a supplemental supply of water. And that's what we've been doing for half
So
a
they were
century.
using all the well
They
water
were using the
back
well
in
water,
the day?
correct.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting me know.
Sure.
Thank you, Dan and Eric.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a particular field off of Easy Street in West Simi that looks like a marsh, and that is just water bubbling out of the ground. It's very interesting. Okay, commissioners, we have some recommendations from staff to approve the request to exercise latent power.
Should we close the public hearing?
Correct. We need to open the public hearing. Do we have any public speaker cards? Seeing none, then I will close the public hearing and move to make a motion.
Move approval.
Move approval.
And we have a, what?
Commissioner Curtis, would you still like to
Yes, I would approve. A and B.
of staff's recommendation?
Staff recommendations, yes.
Okay, and we have a seconded by Commissioner Zaragoza. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of A and B, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you for that.
Question. When do we need to do a roll call vote, Madam Clerk? Do we need to do, this is a roll call, but you didn't call the name, so.
I guess if it was maybe a contentious
I'm just
item.
curious, because other groups demand a recall. I'm not a recall, roll call.
Michael, do you have any insight on that?
Yes, the applicable law just indicates that the record needs to show how each commissioner in this case voted on a matter. There are different ways to achieve that. A roll call is the cleanest, or a electronic system where you click in. And so that's the cleanest way to do it. However, that law doesn't require a roll call. So if there's another way by which the record shows how each member voted, that satisfies the law.
Thank you.
Great question. Okay, Commissioner Curtis?
On that issue, some of the agencies I've worked with before we voted, it's a monetary situation at a certain level. And then it requires that roll call vote.
Okay. Well, I trust our staff and council will catch us when we need to do those things. Great. Okay, let's move on to another public hearing item. Item 9, Sphere of Influence Review and Update for LAFCo 19-07S, Piru Public Cemetery District. Andrea?
This is the Sphere of Influence Review or Update for the Piru Public Cemetery District. The Piru Public Cemetery District was formed in 1914 and provides cemetery services in the unincorporated community of Piru and the vicinity. Here's a map of the community of Piru with the cemetery itself shown in red on the west end of the cemetery. It's about a 1.5 acre property. About 1 acre is developed with the cemetery, and about 1.5 acre, or sorry, it's a 2.5 acre property with 1 acre developed as a cemetery and 1.5 developed as, or included as hillside. And you can see that in the photo on the bottom there to the west end of the cemetery. LAFCo is required to determine a sphere of influence for each city and special district before January 1, 2008, and every 5 years thereafter. A sphere of influence is defined as the probable physical boundary and service area of a local agency as determined by the Commission. At your January meeting, Kai talked in depth about the issues that had gone on in the past with the Piru Public Cemetery District. So I'll just review briefly here the municipal service review and sphere of influence reviews, the conclusions that were made there over the last 12 years. Those conclusions documented noncompliance with requirements for notification and conduct at Board of Trustees meetings and budget, audit, and financial reporting requirements, the inability to independently perform basic services and provide records and retain Board of Trustees members, a reliance on volunteers and the third district supervisor, and also a lot of uncertainty regarding the future availability of plots. There's capacity issues. No one knows for sure how many plots are available. And it appears that expansion of the cemetery into the adjacent hillside is unlikely due to the cost and the steep terrain there. In 2007, the MSR recommendations included that the Board of Supervisors should either appoint itself as the Board of Trustees or that LAFCo should initiate dissolution of the district, and neither of those has happened. Between 2011 and 2013, another sphere of influence review was conducted, and due to some progress that had taken place during those intervening years, no change in the district sphere was made at that time. Pursuant to Commission direction at the January 2019 meeting, staff looked into options for reorganizing or restructuring the district, and these were the 4 different options that we came up with. One is to terminate by the Board of Supervisors the appointed District Board of Trustees and appoint the Board of Supervisors as the District Board of Trustees. 2, consolidation of cemetery districts. 3, dissolution of the district. And 4, continuation of the district under its current organizational structure. Option 1 is the replacement of the Board of Trustees with the Board of Supervisors. In order to do that, the Board of Supervisors would declare its intent to appoint itself as the Board of Trustees and hold a public hearing. And depending on the level of protest, the board could either vote to terminate the Board of Trustees and appoint itself as the board, terminate proceedings to change the governance structure, or it could determine that a change in governance is necessary to protect health, safety, and welfare and could override protests with a 4/5 vote. And in order to do that, it appears that there would be significant county subsidization necessary in order to support the district under option 1. Option 2 is the consolidation of cemetery districts. There's 3 cemetery districts within Ventura County: Piru, the Bardsdale Cemetery District located in Fillmore, and the El Rancho Simi Cemetery District located in Simi. And each one of those operates a single cemetery. Consolidation could be initiated either by the involved districts, by petition, or by the commission. The commission could order consolidation of the districts either with or without confirmation of the voters, depending on the level of protest, and the commission would determine the consolidated successor district. There are benefits anticipated due to economies of scale, but it's unknown to what extent given the limited information that we have about the Piru Public Cemetery District. Consolidation of Piru with Bardsdale is preferable to El Rancho Simi due to the proximity of the 2 cemeteries, and also because there's a history of the Bardsdale Cemetery District supporting Piru through contracts. The successor district would continue to receive special assessment revenue that's generated within the boundaries. Option 3 is dissolution of the district, and that could be initiated by the Board of Supervisors, the district, petition, or by the commission. The protest thresholds would depend on which of those entities would initiate the dissolution. And the county would be designated as the successor agency to wind up the affairs of the district, but there's also the option for the county to pursue formation of a county service area, and that would be to finance and provide cemetery services within a specific geographic area. We met with County Public Works Agency staff and discussed the issue in detail, and after careful consideration, they looked at this issue as well and determined that they couldn't support volunteering the county to accept that responsibility of managing and operating the district. They acknowledged that they have no experience in operating cemetery districts and providing those services, and also the cost to provide the services is unknown, so they don't know what they would be getting themselves into, and it's likely to exceed the current costs of the district. Option 4 is a continuation of the district under its current structure, and that would provide the district with yet another opportunity to demonstrate its ability to function as an independent agency. Stabilization would likely involve the continued efforts by the 3rd District Supervisor's Office. And also there's an option for the district to contract with county staff to provide some or all of those services. So just to summarize again, the options for reorganizing or restructuring the district include termination of the board by the Board of Supervisors of the district and appointing the Board of Supervisors as the Board of Trustees, consolidation of cemetery districts, dissolution of the district, or continuation of the district as it currently exists. Regardless of the Commission's direction regarding the restructuring of the district, staff recommends that the Commission adopt a provisional sphere of influence, which is intended to delineate territory within which the subject service provider, the district, should pursue restructuring or reorganization options as recommended in the most recent MSR prepared by LAFCo. The sphere of influence boundary would not change as a provisional sphere. It would simply be redesignated. The existing boundary would be redesignated as a provisional sphere of influence. Adoption of the recommended provisional sphere of influence is exempt from CEQA because it can be seen with certainty that there would be no significant effect on the environment. And again, it wouldn't result in a change in the boundaries, and it wouldn't result in a change in any services that are provided by the district. The restructuring options would be evaluated under CEQA at the time that they are pursued. The notice of public hearing was published and posted as required in January. The Commission continued this item for 6 months, so up to today, and comments have been received by Teresa Jordan. One set of comments is included in your packet, and there is another letter that was submitted this morning. Staff recommends that your Commission adopt a provisional sphere of influence for the district that follows the existing sphere of influence boundary of the district and direct staff as appropriate regarding options for the future restructuring of the district. That concludes the presentation. We also have public work staff available and staff from Supervisor Kelly Long's office as well.
Thank you, Andrea. Are we aware of anyone from the cemetery district being here today?
No.
We do have some. Excellent. 3 trustees, fantastic. Maybe it would be appropriate to have them come up for a few moments and tell us what they're up to over there.
Please, yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Debbie Chisani, and I am the secretary and a board trustee of the Piru Cemetery District.
Great. Well, as you were listening to the staff report, any comments on just the status of the cemetery district, how you guys are feeling with the workload and where you're at with some of those items?
At first, we were a little overwhelmed, but we've been working with Brian and Mike and Manuel, and they've been helping us and showing us what we need to do to be compliant. So we have that in place, and we are having our regularly scheduled meetings once a month, and the minutes and the agendas and everything is being provided. And we're just trying to do better. I know we have approximately, I'm gonna say 6 plots left in for burial, full burial. But we have numerous cremation sites, and then all the pre-sold graves, they are also able to accommodate more burials also. So that's what we've really been worrying about. And then we're working on a map to have,
To identify the different
Yes.
sites, yeah.
So we are trying
That's
to
good.
get this back in place, order.
Okay, any commissioners have questions? Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I'd like to ask you, when was the last time there was a burial?
That would have been last month. We had 2 cremations.
Okay. And a more personal question. Why are you involved? Do you have a personal connection?
I do. I've lived in Piru my whole life. My family, we're 5th generations Californians, and we've been here. my parents, everybody's grown up, and I've always wanted to help with the cemetery since I was young, to be honest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Parvin?
Debbie, you were smiling very big at me when I was coming into the building, and I thought, she's such a friendly person. And you have an interesting job. My question to you is, you've read staff's recommendation
Yes.
today, and what are your thoughts on that?
I see what we need to do. I mean, when we first took over this, nobody trained us. Nobody told us what we needed to do. They just pretty much handed us everything and said, go for it. So it's a learning process. And me personally, I take everything very personal, and I've kind of made it my own business because, I know everything has to be put out there. And that's what I tell my fellow trustees. This is a business, and we need to run it as such. So that's my thinking.
So you think over time that everything will be organized?
Yes. Oh, yes. Most definitely. I know we have a good group here, and Brian and Mike and Manuel are very helpful with us.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Curtis?
Question, have you contacted the California Cemetery Association to see if you could get some help?
I have not, sir. I have not.
Because I know people who are in that. I was at meetings with these people, and they have help for small agencies, because cemeteries are usually small agencies themselves.
Yes.
And so they understand the problems that you have in a small agency. But I think you could if you could get a hold of them, because they might have some programs that will help you,
Okay.
and it's strictly as the cemetery should be run.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Zaragoza.
Debbie, I was looking at option number 2, consolidation with
With the other.
Barnesdale. I think you've had a couple of times, they come
We've tried
over and it's still the cemetery's non-compliant, with the rules and so forth. Don't you think it might be maybe more beneficial to join the Barnesdale Cemetery and consolidate with them, because they have all the wherewithal to help with the plots, with the accounting, with the bookkeeping, with the compliance of a cemetery? And maybe some of the board members, if you do consolidate, I'm not sure if they can, some of your members might be able even to join that board to help you, manage your cemetery. And it might be maybe an opportunity for your board or part of that board to join that board and consolidate with the Barnesdale Cemetery. Just a thought.
Yes. I know they've tried that before, and I don't know why they separated again, but we want to keep it local in Piru. Piru people.
Isn't the Barnesdale right in the same area, cemetery?
West by 20 minutes or so, 20 or 30 minutes by car.
I'm just thinking out loud because they have all the expertise, they have the experience, they have the board, they have, the probably most likely the equipment and et cetera, to take care of the cemeteries. And that might help you with your, cemetery. And probably maybe then come out into compliance and with the rules and regs for cemeteries.
Thank you. We'll keep that in mind.
Option 2, I think.
As an option.
Should be like a,
Yeah, and I think too, it would be dependent on Bardsdale being open to the idea, which we haven't directly
I
spoken.
want to say the last time that we approached them, I think they said no,
oh, really?
to be honest. I think that's what I was told.
Do we have any information on that?
We met with one of the board members from Bardsdale who was open to the idea of discussing consolidation, but she couldn't speak for the board. That was her own personal opinion. But she said she would be willing to approach the board and discuss this option. And we would certainly approach the board of Bardsdale if so directed by the commission to pursue that.
Because I'm not going to speak for the board, but of supervisors, I don't think our Public Works Department is really in a position to take over a cemetery, because that's not the public works forte. But again, you know, Barstow, you know, cemetery would be something that we could look at. That's what, you know, be my thinking right now, because, well, they have it all, you know, it's something that you might be able to work with.
Great. Well, thank you, Debbie, for coming and speaking to the commission. I know this is a major improvement from our last meeting on the topic, and this seems like there's some momentum in the right direction. If we could maybe have someone from...
Brian Miller?
Yes, Brian Miller. Would you care to speak on the topic? Thank you, Debbie.
Chair Ross and members of the commission, Brian Miller with Supervisor Kelly Long's office. First of all, I just want to start out by saying we have 3 cemetery districts, as you know, in the county, and in my opinion, they're kind of set up for failure. These, as you probably have seen by the budget, Piru is operating on a $45,000 a year budget. They can't have a hard time even hiring staff. That being said, these group of wonderful volunteers get it done. They figure out a way to get it done, and that just seems to be the best way so far. We also have had help with Mike Kumazawa with the CEO's office helping us put together a budget. Our auditor controller's office is helping running all the money through there, so it's all above board. We can see what's happening with all of that. They've held a Memorial Day ceremony that was just fantastic. The cemetery looks great, is in good shape, and actually they ended last year with $7,000 surplus. So, like I said, they're really getting the job done. What we're trying to help them with and what they need better assistance with is making sure they comply with the Brown Act completely, holding the regular meetings, noticing, which they do, and all of those things. So we're working to make sure that the budgets are passed on time and doing all of those things. But the volunteers really get it done. We have Irma Torres is here as well, and Luis Cisneros. We just added the 5th Oscar Mendez. So we now have a full contingent of the board members. But specifically, I wanted to address the Bardsdale Cemetery issue really quickly. We do work very closely with the Bardsdale Cemetery. They have their own set of issues and problems. They're a much larger cemetery. They operate on about $145,000 a year budget, believe it or not. But their cemetery is probably 7 or 8 acres. It's much larger and much more happening there. But they do have problems, and their trustees are local to Fillmore Piru. To Fillmore Bardsdale. And I think there's always a concern of, and I'm sure it would be from Piru, am I subsidizing Fillmore? Is Fillmore subsidizing Piru? And every community wants to make sure that they do the best with what they have. And I think we have a group of people. There is something to be said about longevity there, and we do have some of the board members now that have been on for a couple of years, and they learn, and it's when you have the turnover that it we all have to reset and get started again. But I think we're there, and we are committed to working with this board and making sure that we turn this around and comply. I think they understand the gravity of it now and are working with us even more in earnest. So I would just ask that you give us a little more time. If you want to agendize it again for another year and come back and ask us for that or whatever. But I think we're on the road to getting there.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Oh, I just think it's, cemetery is very important to everyone because it captures your memories, your loved ones, and even if you don't have anyone close to you buried there, it's a sacred place. So really appreciate people stepping up and taking care of their ancestors and their community history. So I would support that recommendation, Mr. Miller. Thank you.
I just also want to thank Supervisor Long's office and Brian in particular for stepping up. This is a long time coming in terms of realizing we need to have a better way of being able to provide the service. And I think what Supervisor Zaragoza is suggesting has a lot of merit. We also know that there's a lot of turnover in the board members of the different cemeteries. And so the idea of being able to consolidate and get some, well, have to recruit from less of them, but also I think you get that economy of scale, and you can have the same one administration that oversees 2 cemeteries at least. So I think that's all a positive.
So Brian, you're looking at 6 months, is that what you're saying?
You know, it's kind of hard. It's funny. They only have maybe 2, 3, 5 burials a year, and most of those are cremations. So it's not like we're going to see a lot happening other than just bringing them into being compliant with what they need to do.
Because Brian, I think this is probably the 3rd time that we extended, you know, and for Debbie's and the other board members, I think it's important that, you know, that they have some kind of structure, you know, to continue operating properly with a Brown Act, with a budgeting, and et cetera, et cetera. And you know, if it seems like there's going to be a motion made to give you some time. In 1 year, if it doesn't happen, then you're going to consolidate.
Well, as Commissioner Curtis said, getting them more involved with CAPC, which is the State Cemetery Association. One of my goals is that I've worked a lot, when I was with Supervisor Foy, we worked with the Simi Valley Cemetery, and they've done a masterful job of turning things around. And what I'd like to do is get, maybe once a year, get all of those cemetery managers and trustees together to share ideas. And how did you solve this? What did you do with that? So it'd be nice to even to get our local cemetery districts together on an occasion.
And maybe form a JPA, maybe all form together so everybody.
Or at least learn from each other, right, and how they're doing it. Not have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Great. Brian, one other thing is we have staff recommendation to update the sphere of influence and bring that boundary in a little tighter. Does Supervisor Long have any thoughts on that or not?
I don't know that we have a specific thing on that. I mean, obviously, we want to do what LAFCo thinks is right in making sure that you, I guess that it represents a boundary that it serves and not any bigger or larger. That's what.
Yeah, it wouldn't change the actual location of the sphere. It would just redesignate it as a provisional sphere. Basically, it would be LAFCO informing the district that you really need to take care of the issues that were identified in that MSR. So it's just a way of the commission really letting the district know that they need to take this seriously.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you, Brian. Appreciate
We got
that.
more questions.
Oh, more questions.
Jack and I.
Oh, my goodness, Commissioner Curtis.
Question. Would the implementation of that provisional sphere preclude the properties outside that from paying their annual fees to the cemetery district?
No, nothing would change with that. Those areas that were eliminated from the sphere of influence about 5 years ago, those are owned by the federal government. They're not paying the fees anyway. That's why the sphere was pulled back to remove all of those properties from the district sphere. So the sphere itself will not change location. Nothing will change other than it will be designated a provisional sphere for the purposes that I just informed you about.
Thank you for the clarification. Commissioner Parks?
As I understand, there's about a 1.5 acre site nearby that they're looking at that could be looked at for potential expansion that would require substantial grading, for example. Is that something that we would want to pull back from because it seems to be pretty pie in the sky? And
yeah, talking to staff at Bardsdale, and Bardsdale staff was helping Pyru with some of the maintenance. They informed me that it's not going to happen, that it's just too steep, and the price to level that out to a usable grade is going to be incredibly expensive. So talking to Brian and Longstaff, the district does have a potential option of removing an internal road in the cemetery, which would then free up some space for additional burials. I don't know to what extent that has been implemented or discussed, but that is an option.
so currently, as the sphere of influence is out there, would we want to change it anyway so that we don't look at the future growth into a ridge line that needs to be graded flat?
Yeah, it wouldn't change
Okay.
the functioning of the cemetery at all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, this is a public hearing item, and I do have one speaker card, so I will open the public hearing and ask that Teresa Jordan come up and speak.
Good morning, members of the Commission. Teresa Jordan. I have a letter to read into the record, and copies have already been provided for your consideration. My letter reads, Dear members of the Commission, I am very grateful to your staff for including all of my evidentiary materials with this item's staff report. Members of the Commission, I support the continuation of the PPCD under its current organizational structure, number 4, page 6, staff report. I do not support the adoption of a provisional sphere of influence for the PPCD, page 6. Members of the Commission, even though I have been in contact with Supervisor Kelly Longstaff, I will only speak about my efforts to provide the Piru Public Cemetery District Board of Trustees for the past 6 months with hope. Members of the Commission, I am not an expert. I never enrolled in governmental studies. Everything that I have said in my letters to you comes from decades of experiences, attending meetings of our Public Cemetery District Board, addressing numerous and various issues in my many letters, participating in trustees' discussions, researching specific issues, following through with all the tasks that I take on, committing to protect and preserve one Ventura County Public Cemetery District for future generations, and now all three. Members of the Commission, one Supervisor Kelly Long's office and/or the Piru Public Cemetery District Board of Trustees permit me to make donations. I can start by contributing small amounts for 1, copying paper purchases, notices, agendas, minutes. 2, publicizing the board meeting notices in newspapers. 3, partial cost of the place where meetings are held. 4, partial cost of setting up a website. And 5, a California Association of Public Cemeteries, CAPC, membership. Among their services provided to members are mentor trustees and mentor managers. Please note, on July 15, 2019, I contacted Carol Grease, the executive director of the CAPC. After explaining who I was and why I was calling, she mentioned that the CAPC on November 1st, 2019, sends out a letter with an attached trial membership form. For 2020, as a trial member, the fee to the Piru Cemetery District can be free of charge. For 2021, the fee can be a discount. For CAPC members, the fee is based on the number of burials a year. The membership fee is $32 for 1 to 10 burials a year. It is $63 for 11 to 25 burials a year. For 26 to 50 burials a year, it is $126. The fee is $284 for 51 to 100 burials a year. The CAPC needs an address or telephone number to contact the Piru Cemetery District. I explained that I do not interfere with Supervisor Long's staff's efforts. I mentioned the LAFCo July 17, 2019 meeting. I said Supervisor Long's office is my point of contact. I will convey the information. Members of the Commission, I commend Supervisor Kelly Long's and her staff's efforts to date. I have no doubt that stabilizing the Piru Public Cemetery District can be achieved. Otherwise, on May 21, 2019, the Ventura County Board of Supervisors would not have appointed Mr. Oscar Mendez as a Piru Cemetery District trustee for a term ending January 4th, 2021. Meeting agenda item 51. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, commissioners, at this point I will close the public hearing and we can deliberate on the topic. We've heard from trustees from the district. We've heard from Supervisor Kelly Long's office and the public. Do we have any thoughts on how to proceed? Commissioner Ramirez?
Well, I would move to give the folks more time to get organized and help and appreciate the help of Supervisor Long's office in making that happen, as well as the rest of the county staff. So that would be my recommendation. I think 6 months is pretty short. Usually, in the scheme of things, I'd say a year to come back and see how they're doing.
Okay.
So,
Any comments on the sphere part?
Any thoughts on the provisional sphere?
Yeah, on your motion?
it seems correct.
Then I'll second your motion.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should also encourage the consolidation.
And also investigate whether or not that's a doable, acceptable consolidation of the cemetery districts.
I think that would be at a minimum, because over the years, we really have seen so much difficulties because they're so small, and being able to run these and people come and go on the boards and all that. So we need to do what we can now that we have the opportunity to try to strengthen that. And I think you'll have that strength in the consolidation, more so than you have now.
I agree with that.
As far as encouraging them to go in that direction?
Take some real steps.
Get the options of consolidation.
Take some real steps, have some meetings, have real discussions instead of just thinking about it.
And if there could be something a little bit stronger than just the words encourage, maybe have them report back, or I don't know, bring it to staff of how we can put more motivation towards that goal.
Well, if the commission wants to give them additional time to, correct the deficiencies, I think that's what the commission can act to do. I would encourage you actually to go beyond a year. I think given the low number of burials and the little business that does occur at the cemetery district, I think a year might not be long enough to establish a track record that they've actually addressed adequately all of the issues that we've identified. I would maybe encourage you to extend that a little bit longer. And then at the end of that period, come back and do this again. And if the district has not adequately addressed the issues, then at that time the commission can direct us to look into consolidation, or we can do it simultaneously.
Can we also work, Brian, and with Bardsdale, and as an option as we continue in this, 1 year or plus? And if it doesn't work out, then maybe the consolidation with Bardsdale might be inappropriate.
Sure, and depending on the time frame that the commission wants to give them, we can start looking into the option of consolidation toward the end of that, and then present an option to you at the end of the time frame.
What do you think, Brian? You think Callie's office would? Can we go ahead? I know we closed the public hearing. Can we open it again?
Yeah.
Well, we can certainly try to facilitate some of those discussions. As I said before, I think what makes it difficult is everybody is volunteers, and they're willing to do that to look after their own community. But when you start adding in more responsibilities when they're volunteering to look after another district that's even in more greater need than they are, it's difficult for them to say, yeah, I'm going to take that on too. And
I was just thinking,
we'll open up the discussion.
I was just thinking, because this is the third time it's come here. If we continue this path, we're going to have some kind of option.
Yes.
If that doesn't work.
Yes.
That's just an idea.
We can certainly facilitate those talks.
But we've made a lot of progress since the last meeting.
That's right.
We have board members here today. We didn't have those in the past.
And maybe the Mayor Pro Tem, is that okay with the?
Yes, I think we need to restate all those different components. Let me see if I could do it. When we're going to, and I would take the recommendation of our director to heart, longer than a year. But what would be your recommendation?
A year and a
Year
half.
and a half?
A year and a half will be fine, sure. And then,
18 months?
yeah, and after a year, we can start looking into the possibility, or at least open the discussions about consolidation. And as I said, at the end of that 18-month, we'll have something to present to you.
So we're going to ask for report back in 18 months. And during that time, and we're going to recommend this, I would recommend the sphere of influence that's been proposed by staff. And we're going to ask the board to actually take some steps to investigate consolidation with the other districts, and perhaps ask Supervisor Long's staff to help facilitate that, perhaps.
Great.
I will amend my motion to second your motion.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on the item? Commissioner Curtis?
Yeah, I have a question. It doesn't really pertain to this, but it does. I question, has there ever been a municipal advisory council set up for Fillmore by the Board of Supervisors?
You have a Mac, don't you, Brian, over? Fillmore's its own city, so we've never. Oh, it's its own city, yeah.
Yeah, there's no municipal advisory councils there, haven't been.
So the city of Fillmore did.
The only reason I bring this.
That would be unincorporated.
Yeah, I know. It's, I live in the unincorporated area, and we had a municipal advisory council set up by Supervisor Bennett years ago. And I happened to be on that for quite some time. But anyway, I think it would be good for the community to have something like that, because this is an issue that could be brought before that council, and you'd get more interest in people in taking care of it.
Yeah, most of us have Macs. You know, I have a Mac in the 5th District too, and I know Parks has that.
Yeah,
a Mac
that would be under Supervisor Long's council, and they're certainly to be recommended. Boy, they've done a great job as far as I'm concerned, from what I've heard here, as far as trying to get this thing off the ground, and it seems to me they want to get it off the ground. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Curtis. So we have a first and a second on approving the provisional sphere of influence, giving the district 18 months to continue moving forward, and then also beginning directing staff as well as coordinating with Kelly Long's office and the cemetery district to look into consolidation as a backup option, basically. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, trustees, for showing up. It's really great to communicate with you today on that, and good luck with the good work you're doing over there in Piru. And thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. All right. Let's continue on with our agenda here today. We're moving on to action items. Item 10, amendments to the Ventura LAFCo Commissioner's Handbook, out-of-agency service agreement definitions. This is a continuation from January 16, where we talked about various definitions and amendments to the handbook. And we have Kai to present some more material for us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Ross. So this will be the third time the Commission has considered these definitions. As Chair Ross said, it was most recently continued from...
Sorry, Kaiser, mic on?
It looks like this one may not be. Is that better?
A little better.
Okay. Okay, so this item was continued from the January meeting, 6 months, to July. And before that, it was considered by the Commission at the October meeting, where it was continued to January. So the proposal is to add to the Commissioner's Handbook, Section 5113, which are definitions for new service and extended service. I won't read these now because I'll be talking about them in a moment. These definitions, this section, would go into Division 5. Division 5 is the Commissioner's Handbook that pertains only to out-of-agency services. So in no other context would these definitions apply. They apply only to out-of-agency services. So the term new and extended services is referred to 17 times in LAFCO law. It's referenced one time in Section 56375P, and that says that LAFCO has the power to approve out-of-agency services. 4 times in Section 56133, again pertaining to out-of-agency services. 2 times in 56133.5, which is in regards to out-of-agency services in only Napa and San Bernardino counties, so it does not apply to Ventura County. And then 10 times in Section 56134, again, talking only about out-of-agency services In that case, fire protection services. And again, that section generally does not apply in Ventura County. So the only references that apply are in 56133 and 567.375P. Those are what apply here in Ventura County, and I'll go over those in a minute. As I said, all 17 references are to out-of-agency services only. And again, even in LAFCO law, they are not used in any other context. However, LAFCO law does not define new or extended services. So these are those two sections of LAFCO law that we deal with almost exclusively when it comes to out-of-agency services. There's a subdivision P up there, that is, the commission shall have the power to authorize a city or district to provide new or extended services outside its jurisdictional boundaries pursuant to 56133. That is what gives the commission that authority. And then under 56133, subdivision A, a city or district may provide new or extended services by contract or agreement outside its jurisdictional boundary only if it first requests and receives written approval from the commission. What's interesting about this subdivision, even though it's in LAFCO law, it doesn't apply to LAFCO. This is a limitation on cities and districts. The courts have said that this applies to cities and districts. They have to get LAFCO approval before they can do this. Subdivision C, B, and C are the two circumstances under which LAFCO can approve a request from a city or district. Subdivision B, the commission may authorize a city or district to provide new or extended services.
To initiate that initially before it comes to that?
Right, yeah. So the Court of Appeal, California Court of Appeal, they determined that subdivision A is a limitation on cities and districts exclusively. City or district, if you want to provide a service outside your boundaries, you have to go to LAFCO and get approval to do so.
Provide the services and et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
Okay.
right. And then there's only two circumstances that LAFCO has the authority to approve it, and that's B and C. Absent those circumstances, LAFCO does not have authority. So subdivision C is, if consistent with adopted policy, the commission may authorize a city or district to provide new or extended services outside its jurisdictional boundary and outside its sphere of influence to respond to an existing or impending threat to health and safety. So, given that there is no definitions in LAFCO law, it has been up to LAFCO staff to determine how to apply these two terms. What's a new or extended service? But back in 2008, as most of you will recall, the State Department of Corrections wanted to build a 1,500 inmate prison hospital just outside of Camarillo. And it was going to take the place of a California Youth Authority facility that was on the spot. That was going to be demolished. Now, the California Youth Authority had about 300 individuals, kids basically, juveniles in that facility. As I said, the prison hospital was going to demolish that and take over and build 1,500. So the city of Camarillo was providing water to the CYA facility, even though it was outside its boundaries, and the city of Oxnard was providing sewer service to the site, even though it's outside its boundaries. The development of the prison hospital was going to significantly increase the level of these pre-existing services. So with that, the executive officer at the time sought advisement from legal counsel on whether the increase in services was what met the definition of a new or extended service and was subject to 56133 and LAFCO approval. So that's what happened. So the question to LAFCO legal counsel in August of 2008, must the city of Camarillo obtain LAFCO approval pursuant to section 56133 before it can provide an increased level of an existing water service to serve a proposed 1,500 inmate prison hospital? I'm paraphrasing. Legal counsel response in November 2008. This is the legal opinion that's been provided to you back in January. Legal counsel concluded the proposed increase in the level of service of the existing water service constitutes an extended service, and LAFCO approval is required. So the increase in the level of a pre-existing service is an extended service and subject to 56133 and LAFCO approval. Based on legal counsel's interpretation, the commission took action and authorized staff to send letters to the cities of Camarillo and Oxnard, informing them that the increase in the level of the existing service, in this case water and sewer service, for that prison hospital was subject to LAFCO approval pursuant to section 56133. So the commission essentially said, we agree. Extended service is an increase in service. Write the letters, inform the cities of Oxnard and Camarillo. And that's what staff did. The cities agreed. In fact, the State Department of General Services agreed with these conclusions as well. So because the commission accepted these definitions back in 2008, that is why LAFCo staff has been using them since then. We apply these definitions and have been for over 11 years. So what are the definitions? So the definitions that we propose come right out of the legal opinion issued by LAFCO Legal Counsel and accepted by the commission back in 2008. So the LAFCO legal opinion said, new services logically include governmental services like water and sewer that have not been previously provided. Our proposed definition, new service consists of a service that a governmental entity is not currently providing or is not currently authorized to provide. For extended service, LAFCO Legal Counsel's opinion states the concept of an extended service relates to the level of service provided, not the geographic expansion of services or the physical extension of a pipeline or similar link. A service is an extended service if it is provided at a level above and beyond the baseline of service a governmental entity is otherwise required to provide. Our proposed definition is nearly verbatim. Extended service is an increase in the level of service of an existing service, not the geographic expansion of services or the physical extension of a pipeline or similar link. A service is an extended service if it is provided at a level above and beyond the baseline of service a governmental entity is otherwise authorized to provide. Now, the only difference is in our proposals, we throw in a couple of examples. Those examples are not all of the examples. They are up to including this as an example.
Could you explain baseline of service the entity provides?
Yeah, absolutely. So the baseline of service is, again, these definitions apply only to services being provided outside of a city or district's boundary. So the baseline level of service, we have to have a beginning point to determine if a new service has increased above that baseline. So there's two ways of establishing the baseline because there's only two ways that an out-of-agency service can be lawful, can be legal. The first one was that it was being provided before Government Code 56133 became effective. So like to the CYA facility, those were being provided before 2001. So they were legal at that level that was being provided in 2001. So that's the first baseline, the level of the service as of 2001 if it was being provided prior to that. The second baseline, or the second way, only other way, that an out-of-agency service can be lawful is if LAFCO approved an out-of-agency service agreement after 2001. And that establishes that baseline. So anytime there's a proposal to increase level above what was being provided in 2001 or above what was already approved by LAFCO, it's an extended service.
But the city has to initiate that.
Yes, yes, and in the city or the district.
Kai, if the city did that, provide the service above the baseline level, wouldn't they have to annex that?
No, it could be because it just would not be subject to LAFCO review and approval. If it doesn't meet the definition of an extended service, it's not subject to 56133. LAFCO approval is not required. And an example of just recently with the Santa Clara wastewater facility outside of Santa Paula that exploded.
126.
Yeah. Right. So they were using Oxnard's sewer system. They were disposing of their waste material into Oxnard's facility. They shut down, and another company wants to come and begin operations. But the amount of wastewater that they were going to generate and put in there was significantly higher than the previous operator. So LAFCO said, that sounds like an extended service, unless you can demonstrate that in 2001, the amount of wastewater going into that system was higher than what you're proposing now. And they did. And so the city provided their records from 2001 saying, yeah, what we were allowing back in 2001 is greater than what's being proposed now. So we made the determination that's not an extended service. You do not have to get LAFCO approval for that.
Okay, so that would keep it. They have to keep it at the level they had initially.
They have to keep at the below the level that was being provided in 2001. So it could fluctuate. It could go up, it could go down, as long as it doesn't exceed that 2001 level.
Okay, thank you.
Question, when you say local level, do you mean the level of the existing facility?
The level of service that was being provided to.
By the existing, but at the existing facility?
Just to the parcel. So if there was a 3-inch water meter there before 2001,
Yeah.
and a new facility wants to come in and they're going to use a 3-inch water meter, it's not an extended service.
That's correct.
Yeah, if they want to increase it now to 4 inches,
that would be
an extended service and subject to the law.
And it's like, when they were going to build that hospital, it was going to be a large increase, so it would require larger plumbing fixtures, and it would have probably required a larger line to go in, a sewer line. It was probably 6 inch in the first place, but they would need at least an 8 inch for later on.
Right.
That many people.
So the level of
depending upon the slope, and they had it and all that good stuff to go with it. You know, one of the questions also comes too when you have people on septic systems, and they're not within the district, and the health department, you know, shuts them down because they don't have room to increase them, and the sewer system has a line in the area, and you connect.
Right.
And in that particular case, they have to ask LAFCo to do it also.
And that would be a new service under
Right.
56133.
Exactly.
And in that case, it's usually a health and safety issue. And so we turn that around quickly.
Yeah, and the question of annexation comes, well, we don't want to have all these islands everywhere. LAFCO is trying to get rid of islands. That's the object.
Thank you. Kai, would you please continue?
Sure. So at the January meeting and prior to that, we received several comments were made, particularly by the proponents of the Jones Ranch, who, as you know, were proposing a farm worker housing project adjacent to Strickland Acres north of Oxnard. And just briefly, the comments made that the definitions would delegitimize LAFCO's 2005 formation of CSA 34. I don't know if you read this in the letter, and it was talked about at the January meeting. I go into detailed responses to these comments in the staff report, so I'm not going to do that here, but suffice it to say that it won't. These definitions will have no impact whatsoever on CSA 34. Definitions are intended to thwart farm worker housing projects. They're not. These have applied to every situation that is applicable under 56133 since 2008. The definitions would prevent all future farm worker housing projects. That's not accurate. These definitions have nothing to do with any land use authority about this from the cities or the districts. Commission should adopt Marin LAFCO's definition of extended service. As I explained in my staff report, we feel that Marin LAFCO's definition is unlawful. It contradicts LAFCO law. It would be inconsistent with your local policies as well. The definitions would require LAFCO approval to enlarge existing infrastructure such as water mains. That is not accurate. If there's an existing water main outside of a city's boundary, they may improve it. They just can't provide more services from it without being subject to 56133. The term baseline is not defined. Who determines that? I already went over that. The commission should act on all out-of-agency service area requests. This has nothing to do with the proposed definitions, but I addressed it anyway in the staff report. The commission, not staff, should make determinations on whether a service is new or extended. Again, this has nothing to do with the definitions, but I addressed it in the staff report. And the last one was CEQA review is required. However, as again explained in the staff report, it is not. This is not a project under CEQA. So with that, our recommendation is that you adopt a resolution amending the Commissioner's Handbook to add definitions pertaining to out-of-agency service agreements. And that concludes my presentation.
The possibility of extending the discussion on this topic to the September meeting. I decided not to remove it from the agenda because I do believe we have enough information to make a decision here today. It seems very clear to me what we're doing here and thoughtful reasons as to why. Suppose we did approve these definitions today, Kai, and at a later date, a future commission, whether it's us or other commissioners, decide to revisit the topic. Could you inform us on what would be required for this to be brought up again and reviewed and possibly amended if it was decided that this was something we needed to do?
Sure, there's two options. One can be initiated by the commission, and it would just take, majority of the commission to direct staff.
So four commissioners
Four commissioners, right?
voting to review this topic again.
Yeah, and there's also an application process that if an individual, a member of the public or a city or district wants to apply to have the commission consider a new policy or revising a policy, there's an application process for that as well.
Okay. So we have options to review this again. I know it seems like some believe that this will determine the future of this commission's policies and procedures indefinitely, and I want to communicate that this is something that is adjustable if we see that it has unintended consequences in the future. So I would like to move forward with this discussion and possibly have a motion to approve it, but it does depend. Right, it does depend on the commission. So thank you, Kai. We do have, this is a public hearing item, and we do have one speaker card by Lynn Jensen. And if you would, Lynn, give us your thoughts on this topic.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Lynn Jensen with Ventura County CoLab. We have been involved in this issue quite a bit in the past, and I would really like to ask that this decision be postponed as was requested by Commissioner Rooney. And there was also a letter submitted by the Bob Jones Ranch. Actually, their representative had open heart surgery a few days ago and cannot make it up here. So we would very much appreciate that. But in any case, we have expressed our opposition to this language change that we believe will expand the definition to considering land use authority. And there's only two other LAFCOs that have provided definitions for new and extended service, and they track the court's intuitive meanings, according to the attorney, while these definitions do not. We do believe that this is a vast expansion of LAFCO power over local utility and land use authority actions that will affect the county in the future. There are many new projects and solutions that will need to be approved in the county for upgrading our water transportation system. We have renewable energy infrastructure to bring into the county, and we also have several very important farm worker housing projects. These projects could be stalled or rejected due to this handbook language change if adopted today by the Commission. The farm worker housing projects could provide life-changing opportunities for hundreds of farm workers in our community. According to the letter from the attorney from firm Jackson Titus, LAFCO's role is to be the gatekeeper over governmental boundary changes to avoid duplication of service provider areas. Assembly Bill 1335 requires cities and districts to first obtain LAFCO approval before they can contract or agree to provide new and extended services outside the boundaries. Anticipating boundary changes, LAFCO can approve service extensions within the city or district sphere of influence. Understanding LAFCO's primary mission and context to avoid service provider duplication, the terms new and extended service are obvious in their plain language and need no new definition. The definitions and interpretations proposed by staff are over-inclusive and go beyond LAFCO's mission, intervening in local local agency internal utility and land use decisions. Staff has previously concluded that it should have no role whatsoever in land use approvals. LAFCO has no direct authority over land use or subdivision regulations. This was in a letter that was written in August of 2003 regarding the City of Camarillo annexation of Clayburg Ranch and the McGrath Trust properties. Contrary to LAFCO's primary mission and to the plain meaning and context of Government Code 56133, staff's proposed definition does not look at service provider territory expansion, but instead looks at the level of service provided, again focusing on an internal utility and city or district land use decision, which is not part of LAFCO's mission. We oppose the significant expansion of jurisdiction beyond what is statutorily authorized, and we do believe that this extended service definition in the handbook will cause significant impacts to the environment, particularly to water quality, because the definition is going to discourage connections to city and county services, forcing projects to drill water wells or put in septic systems unnecessarily to not have to go through the LAFCO process. And we do think this will create significant impacts to the environment. We would like, again, because of the unfortunate circumstances, we would like to have this continued to the September LAFCo meeting if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Commissioners?
I would just note that this is how the staff has been applying this since at least way back when the Youth Authority was being looked at as a site. It makes complete logic to me, and we've dealt with this months and months and months. So I would like to move that we move forward with this and adopt the definitions prepared by staff and our attorney.
All right, you're making a motion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Just to follow up to Lynn's comments. Kai, as far as farm worker housing projects being delayed, do you anticipate that approving this language would delay a farm worker housing project?
It would have absolutely no impact on a farm worker housing project. Farm worker housing projects are subject to Government Code 56133, as are all projects that require services. It's not the farm worker housing project, it's the services that would be provided that are subject to 56133. These just apply to the services. It's just specifying what these words mean under 56133. It would not impact land use or a project or anything like that.
So you don't anticipate it discouraging connections, like sewer connections?
No, not the definitions. I mean, 56133 is 56133, but the definitions will have nothing to do with whether a farm worker housing complex can receive a service.
Commissioner Ramirez?
You know, I think it's very clear that this staff's recommendation is the reasonable, logical, legal one. Ordinarily, I would like to defer to a commissioner's schedule and certainly people's medical emergencies, but I'm going to defer to the chair at this time, who's made a decision to go forward with it and support the staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Parvin, you had one other?
Yeah, one other follow-up question. Relative to, today I heard that a city would have to come to LAFCo before they even moved forward, which I'm not sure how many cities are aware of that. So I think it would be nice to send out something to, maybe they are.
Well, right, and
Well, you are aware now, but were you aware before?
I think so.
Oh, you were aware before, okay.
And the staff of cities know this. And typically what will happen is, because in this case, it's the city just providing a service outside its boundaries. That city is not the land use authority. It would be like the county.
Right.
So the county knows to send a referral to LAFCo to ask for comments.
Right.
And one of our comments would be, well, the city needs to, is subject to 56133, and that service needs to go before LAFCO. So the development or the land use authority that's processed the entitlements will be informed of that,
Okay.
and the city as well.
All right.
And does the city have the capacity to do that?
Exactly, and that's one of the considerations that we make is, does the city have the ability to do this, to provide that service?
Ensuring the orderly formation of cities and special districts, which is exactly why we're here.
And yet not delaying.
Right.
Not
Not delaying.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Time
Yeah.
is of
Not
the
holding
essence.
things back or
Especially with
taking too
housing.
long or, okay.
Commissioner Curtis?
These definitions will actually help speed up the process because the city will know what is meant by an extended service. The city will know what is a new service, as opposed to having to research it, having to call us, having us to explain it, So it just really does clarify the commission's position.
Question, does the city of Oxnard provide the water and sewer service in that area?
And so there's no public water service provider. There are mutual water companies provide water out in that area. And as far as sewer service, I assume you're talking about the Jones Ranch Farm Worker House?
Yes.
Okay. As far as sewer services, there's a CSA that's adjacent, a county service area. And that CSA provides sewer collection and conveyance services.
Mm-hmm.
And then under an out-of-agency service agreement with the city of Oxnard, that wastewater is shipped to Oxnard, and Oxnard provides the sewer treatment for that area.
capacity in the lines to handle something like that?
I do not believe so. There would have to be some improvements to the
Mayor Pro Tem,
CSA.
I'm sorry, I don't think the city has the capacity.
We have a few financial issues.
So-
Right, and that's all aside from the 56133 issues faced by that development.
I know when the river project went in there, they had to increase the capacity in the lines from Oxnard to meet that particular situation in there. And I'm just wondering if there was enough to handle something. You're talking about an awful lot of flow that
And-
potentially come from that.
And the development of the CSA's collection system was based on the land uses in that area at the time. There was never an anticipation that there would be an additional over 1,000 units being developed on ag land adjacent to that, and that they would be expected to serve it. So it hasn't gotten that far because it's not even a proposal. There's no application for this proposal. It's just envisioned at this point. So it never got that far to find out if the CSA could actually accommodate that development.
Yes, Commissioner Parvin.
This topic itself would make a great topic for a LAFCo conference session, in my opinion.
Oh, interesting point.
Just thought I'd toss that one out.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that.
I can make that recommendation. I can offer that. Okay.
Different definitions, and it's clearly not called out or defined in law.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any further comments, commissioners? We have what seems like some consensus on moving forward with the proposed definitions at this time, recognizing that we can always come back and review these again at any time. So I heard something about a motion. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on the proposed definitions?
Yes, I'll move the recommended action.
Okay, we have a first from Commissioner Ramirez. Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Zaragoza. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, let's keep going here. 10:30, and action items continued. We have item 11, 2019-2020 LAFCo Board of Directors nominations. Authorization for the chair to submit nominations for the 2019 and 20 LAFCO Board of Directors for the city member and public member seats as approved by the commission. So, commissioners, do we have any nominations to submit for city or public member? And Kai, do you have any comments before we?
No, you covered it.
Okay.
Who's serving now?
So I am the public member, and Janice, are you considered the city?
I'm not. Well, I'm city, but I haven't served on the board in the past.
Oh, right.
Who's serving now?
You're both city members.
Nobody from our commission. Yeah, this would be for the coastal region to sit on the LAFCO Board of Directors. They need two people. It could be a public member or a city member from any of the LAFCOs in the coastal region. So they're asking for a nomination of if anyone's interested from our commission to run for one of those seats.
I definitely would like to nominate our chair again if he's willing to do it again.
Thank you.
Second that.
I appreciate that. Kai, could you remind us of the workload involved in that, if you're familiar? How many meetings? Where are we going?
I think it's 4 to 6 meetings a year, if I recall correctly. And typically they're in Sacramento. They will often switch from Sacramento to somewhere in Los Angeles. You can sit on committees. You can be as involved or not as you want. But it is a 2-year commitment, and you will be expected to attend these board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think every year there's a board members retreat as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe I've sought this position in the past, and there's been several candidates from other counties that were very well qualified and did a great job. I'd be happy to give it another shot for our.
And you made a great presentation the last time.
Thank you. That was fun. That was a beautiful boat we were on.
There you go.
Okay, so with that, I don't know if we need a motion and a second on nominating.
I think we do. I'll move that the chair be nominated.
Second.
Thank you. First from Commissioner Parks and a second from Commissioner Ramirez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I won't let you down. Item 12, 2019-2020 Board of Directors election voting delegates. Approval of the commission's designation of a voting delegate and an alternate for the 19 and 20 LAFCo Board of Directors election.
Yeah, and again, we just need a delegate, a voting delegate, and an alternate to cast the vote during the elections for the board that we just nominated Chair Ross for.
Is that held at the conference?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. That's why this is needed.
Right. I
Carmen,
believe
are you attending the conference?
When is the conference?
it's October 30th.
30th through the 2nd or 1st? Yeah.
It's Thursday through
I hope
Friday.
to.
Halloween.
I hope to.
I know in the past, I believe John and I have been.
Yeah,
the voting
I can, I hope to attend, yeah.
Okay,
I can be the alternate or?
sure. I'll be there for sure.
Okay.
That's fine, yeah, that's typical. The chair's the voting, the delegate, and then
And I can be the alternate?
that will work, yes.
Great.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, first Commissioner Ramirez and a second from Commissioner Parvin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. And item 13, 2019 LAFCo Achievement Award nominations. Determine whether the commission wishes to submit nominations for the 2019 LAFCO Achievement Awards. It says material will be available by today. You have some material for us, Kai? Or? It's on our monitor. Okay.
Yeah, we weren't provided the materials from LAFCo until after the staff report, so the packet was sent out.
Okay.
In the past, we've nominated several members of our staff, right? And
Our clerk.
I don't recall what the outcome was.
Yeah, Rochelle
was-
had the honor.
Yeah.
You were nominated.
Rochelle was
She
nominated
won.
and she actually won.
Oh, you
That
won.
was, right.
Yeah, why can't I remember that?
That was, I think,
Well deserved.
3 or 4 years ago. And then I think 3 years ago, Andrea was nominated.
Andrea was-
Yeah, unfortunately, Andrea did not win.
She won in our hearts.
Well, let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Yes.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
That's right. And she did all of this and had a baby,
That's right.
right? That's a Wonder Woman in my book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are we able to submit 2 nominations?
So I see
Yes.
on the second page, it says check 1 for the different nomination categories. Outstanding LAFCO member, effective commission, outstanding commissioner, outstanding clerk, associate member, projects of the year, government leadership award, lifetime achievement award. So there's lots of options.
Because I do think that our council, Mr. Walker's done a fantastic job for us, especially some of the issues have been a little complicated, a little contentious, and he's just a steady hand. I really would like to see him nominated as well.
And do we have to give a raise for that?
He's blushing. That's a good sign.
I agree, and additionally, I think some of the opinions he's given have assisted Cal LAFCO overall, too.
That's very true.
So that would be my recommendation, those 2 staffers.
I'll second.
So who will do the write-ups? Kai, are you going to be doing the write-ups then?
Well, I don't know. After Andrea didn't win, I don't know if I should. Yeah, I typically will do the write-ups. So.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be a first from Commissioner Ramirez and a second from Commissioner Parvin. Did I hear that right? On nominating Michael for an achievement award. Okay, great.
And Andrea, of course.
And Andrea, yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, write a good one, Kai. Let's do that. Okay, moving on to item 14, update on LAFCo legislation. This is receive and file. Any comments, Kai, briefly? Okay. Correspondence received, receive and file. Correspondence from Pamela Miller. This is thanking the commission for supporting staff's attendance of the annual staff workshop, April 10th through the 12th. Did we talk about that at all at our last meeting?
Talk about what, I'm sorry?
About the staff workshop and how that went?
Yeah, that was a while ago, wasn't it? That was,
April 10th.
yeah, April, yeah, I believe I updated you.
Okay, yeah.
Members, yeah.
Great. And the executive officer's report on item 16, anticipated future items. Anything noteworthy for us?
No.
Business as usual. Okay. Having gone through all that, we do have the annual conference, which is in Sacramento, which is, I believe, the location, the first LAFCo conference I went to, and it's great. There's tours of the Capitol if you haven't done that yet.
And if I may, if you are planning on attending, please let either me or Rochelle know as soon as you can, so we can early bird.
Book some accommodations.
I plan on attending.
Great.
Me too.
Where is that, at the convention center? Where's it going to be at?
It's going to be at the Hyatt Hotel right across, I believe it's
across
at
the
Hyatt.
street.
Yeah, right across the street from the Capitol.
It's great.
It's a really nice venue, yeah.
Yes, great. Okay, otherwise, do we have any commissioner comments on items
I've got to look at my calendar.
not on the agenda? Not hearing any. We will be going dark in August per our schedule, so we won't have a meeting next month, but we will pick up where we left off in September. And I believe that's, September 18th. So mark your calendars.
Yeah, and I would like to add, a couple of weeks ago, I made a presentation about LAFCOs. I gave an overview about LAFCOs called Who We Are and What We Do to the Ventura County Special Districts Association. That went over really well. Several questions. There was a lot of interest. And following that, last week, I made a similar presentation to the Simi Valley Community Council, which was an organization of primarily nonprofits throughout the city of Simi Valley. And that went over really well. These people were basically unfamiliar with LAFCOs, and I attended at the invitation of Commissioner Freeman. And the interest was pretty incredible, the number of questions and just the, wow, we never knew. And so the Kiwanis now, it looks like they would like me to attend and make the same presentation to them as well. So I'll let you know if anything comes of that.
Getting some exposure. That's great. Last thing, move update across the street.
Okay, well, we have what I would have called a firm date a week ago. So all of the tenant improvements are supposed to be completed by August 1st, and that is the time that they will turn the property over to the county, and then we can start the move-in process. We are scheduled to move in on August 5th. It's the first Monday after the county and basically LAFCO get possession. I was just recently informed, however, that IT services might be delayed in putting all of their needed equipment in, so it might be postponed after August 5th, but that's not confirmed yet. As of now, it's scheduled for August 5th, so I'll keep you apprised.
But Mr. Chairman, the meetings are still going to be held here?
Yes.
Just the offices are going to be?
Just the offices, yes. Everything else will remain the same. We will still have access to the building. We will still be dealing with the different various county departments that support us, and the meetings will be held here.
Great.
You mean the LAFCO is really going to become independent with their own office?
That's right.
They've been independent all the time.
I know. I'm just giving you.
And I hear the new spot has windows, which is a nice improvement. All right. Well, Godspeed with that. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
And
Moved by Commissioner
and Mr.
Ramirez.
Congratulations to you. I understand that you.
Yes,
Where's your
thank you.
wedding ring?
Yes, wedding ring.
Congratulations.
Taken, locked in. That was great. Honeymoon was wonderful.
Your
Yeah.
wife's not
By
listening to
choice.
this, you know that.
Yeah, she is. I'm in trouble.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have a first from Commissioner Ramirez to adjourn. Second from Commissioner Curtis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Dark
Yes.
next week. Or month.